call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add two more figures to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will take a look at the 2-pack of Atomic Skull and Superman. Now this might be a pretty quick review because I'm basically just going to go over the Atomic Skull, which is more of a retooled figure, while the Superman is just a repaint of the Superman 1000. But I will take a look at some of the details in both and do a little comparisons with the figures they are based on. Now, I actually don't really know a lot about Atomic Skull. They did both come in the packaging that's like a closed packaging from Amazon, which doesn't really bother me since you're ordering, online. So it's pretty much a roll of the dice, the figures that you're going to actually get. And since these aren't actually on store shelves, that is the main reason it doesn't bother me. Now on the back, you do have some pretty cool comic art of Atomic Skull, and then the same image that they used before for Superman 1000. Now, gotta be honest, not very familiar with Atomic Skull, which is pretty strange because you would think that he would be a character I'm really into since I'm a big fan of skulls. Actually, every room you go into this place, you will see some sort of skull. But these are two pretty interesting looking figures, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at them. But first, they do both come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now, of course, these are not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. Now, taking a look at Atomic Skull's card, you do have some source material. Looks pretty interesting. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with this character. But if you have a flaming skull on the top of your body, you are probably pretty crazy. And on the back, you do have a read up of Joel Martin. Pretty cool. Add that to the collection. Now, he actually does come with some accessories, which are these effects hands. Now, I kind of switched out the hands because these actually come with him in package. I guess to give like that their battling sort of scene, which doesn't really make sense because they're covered in the package. But taking a look at them, they are made of some translucent plastic, and they're actually doing an awesome job of forming the hands in there where you could actually see the shape of the hands. This little idea that McFarlane had is actually starting to pan out. And although the ones that were released with Raven weren't too popular, they actually executed it a little bit better with the Black Lightning figure. And now this one, they do look really awesome. So we'll take a look at those later on. Now, as I said before, I'm not going to look at the Superman too much. He does come with his, basically the card he came with the Superman 1000, except this one just says Action Comics. His black stand, and he does get two alternate flying hands. We'll hold on to these as well. Now in the package, you actually do get this. I think it's reused from the White Knight 2-pack of Batman and Azrael, where it was more like a flame effect color. Pretty cool. What I did notice is that this guy looks really awesome with this flame effect around him. So I'll give him points for that. It does come in two pieces and you have to snap them together. But I really love the plastic that they use here, which is something McFarlane should learn, that translucent, transparent plastic sells. So we'll hold on to this as well. So first off, let's take a closer look at Atomic Skull. Now, first impressions. Man, I have to say something that I didn't really expect is the paint job on this figure. It's a really interesting sort of metallic, sort of violet purple color scheme, and it looks really good. In hand, it actually gives off a completely different vibe than when I saw the first images of him. He just got like that sort of like ripple tone where when you move him, it gives off different shades, even a little bit of silver, like on the armor, which is not really there because it is more of a violet metallic paint. So there is no silver, but it just gives off that sheen, which comes from using metallic paint. So really a big fan of this, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Purple. But for some reason, this guy uh, is really making me rethink my decision because it looks really nice. Awesome. Now, this is very reminiscent of the Lex Luthor power suit armor. So we'll have to take a comparison at that. Like I said, I won't be looking over the articulation too much, but we will look at the head. Now, looking at the head, nice skull detail. Man, if you really get in there, he has like little grain and lines on the bone of the skull, which is a nice added detail. You got that flaming hair. As I said before, McFarlane should learn to use a lot more translucent plastic because it is something very eye-catching and people just really enjoy that in their figures, that little added accent of that plastic. So it looks really good. And what you could see, honestly, is that the whole skull is not actually sculpted out. It's actually like half, and then the rest of it is that clear purple plastic to make it, the flaming effect on his head. So they actually executed it really nicely. Let's take a look at the head articulation. Now he does look down really well, giving you sort of menacing look. Looks up really well. You got right to left. And of course, you could tilt his head for some character. Pretty nice. And then going down. Now, very similar to the Lex Luthor body. Let's actually go ahead and bring him out. And this is another beautiful figure that a lot of people like don't really talk about anymore. And I realized this because when I brought him out to actually do the comparison, I could not put this Lex Luthor down. I mean, just a really well executed figure. The head sculpt is, impeccable. And you got that creepy side eye look to him. Just had a lot of fun. I mean, the only parts I didn't really enjoy about this figure was I think the hands are a tad bit small. But if you can overlook that, he is a beautiful figure. And it's nice to see that with this atomic skull, they actually made the hands more proportionate and they fit in really well. It just makes me wish that I could match this sort of metallic candy green paint so that I could buy another one of these and give Lex Luthor some proper sized hands. But when you put them both together, you could see the similarities. Now, I can tell you right away that the arms, the abdomen, and the thighs are exactly the same. But the forearm guards, the whole chest armor, the knees, and the lower legs, which is the shin guards and the boots, are all completely different. So although they did use this figure as a base, there is enough differences that it was a really good reuse that they did with this atomic skull. Now, if you look, compare them together, they look very similar. I do love the way the pins are hidden. By using these joints, it actually makes it look like the pins are part of the mechanisms in the suit. If you look at the back, you can also see the same differences. You can see actually the trunks are different. Even in the front, you can tell the big difference there in the trunks. But they do have the same back scope, which is pretty interesting because I always thought when they added that like sort of spinal bone to Lex Luthor, it was just a little detail that McFarlane seems to always like to add. But now that I'm looking at these two next to each other, you can see how that spine actually works very well with this atomic skull. So all in all, really nice figure. You can easily pop off the hands and pop in these effects, which, as I said, actually work really well. I mean, McFarlane's really starting to figure out how to execute these hands with effects. I would still prefer they put a clear plug into the actual effect and have you actually pop that into the arm, even if it has limited articulation. But for now, this you can actually not see the peg as much as you could before. So it actually really works. Now, this allows you to get him in some cool action poses. He is very fun to put into different poses and take figure photography. So that is why I'm showcasing him more in this review, because he is by far the more interesting figure. Now, you also have the other hand effect, which is more of like a smoldering hand. This one's sort of like a blast. But as I said before, you can have a lot of fun putting them in different action poses. So, I mean, I do like this figure. It is kind of worth it for me to get this pack to actually get this version of Atomic Skull. So, I am not disappointed in this pack merely because of this beautiful figure. But we do have the Superman to take a quick look at. Now, of course, this is just a repaint of the Action Comics 1000. We'll go ahead and bring out the other version, which is the original release. And taking a look at them next to each other, there are slight differences, not really in the sculpt, but in the paint and plastic choices, which means looking at the heads, they do have a similar look, but you can just tell that the original release has sort of like a darker paint applications around the face, while the newer one is a more pinkish, lighter tone. The hair is different, whereas the original is more of a glossy shine. This new one has more of a satin, dulled down look with a little bit of blue highlights in there. Now, moving down at the chest emblem is actually the biggest glaring difference, and that is that this original Superman 1000 has the best Superman shield that has been produced by McFarlane. It is big and takes up most of the chest and is also done in a metallic paint, while this one is the same exact emblem, but it is done more in a dull plastic looking color where it just looks a little bit more dreary and doesn't have the pop that the original release have. Now, the whole suit from the new one is a lighter blue, while the original it has that darker tinge to it. And the reds on this newer one are actually brighter, and that brings up into the negative, which is that they used actually the same ankle ball joints from this original release. And what happened is that it does not match the newer, brighter red of this figure. So you can't really see it on camera too much, but here in hand, you can really notice it. Now you can always paint these a brighter red to match it, which I might end up doing. And it's not too much of a big deal, but I guess if people didn't have this Superman 1000, this is like an awesome little addition you get with this fantastic Atomic Skull figure. But for me, this is just another Superman to add to my row of Superman. And not to say that's a bad thing. I enjoy having all the versions of Superman. But I just feel like the original Superman 1000 release is a superior figure in color scheme to this one. But this one is actually growing on me the more the more that I have him in hand. Just has a lighter feel, a more sunny disposition. So that's pretty awesome. Now, one thing I cannot stand is the way they did the blue wrist joints. You can really see right here how the cuff of the suit is supposed to end and it's supposed to turn into his wrist and hand. But once again, they gave him blue wrist joints, and I just do not like that. I actually have an Action Comics Superman 1000 behind me that is my custom one where I added the yellow S and changed the wrist balls. So before we go, I just want to do that little detail to this one. Now, you can pop off his hands and give him flight hands, but I really detest the trigger finger hand that they give with this figure, they also gave him with the Superman 1000. And I mean, aside from holding a flag or something like that, there is no use for Superman having a gripping hand or a trigger hand. So that really always got under my skin. So first thing I did actually was pop out the wrist pegs and the hands and repainted them a flesh tone. Then I found another hand. I think this is a hand from Superboy Prime, which I actually gave him two fists. So this is a different hand that I have to use for figures. So I went ahead and matched the paint from the wrist pegs to the hand. And then I even repainted the fist that comes with this figure because it just looks a little bit pale to, for my taste. And now it looks a lot better. You go down into the suit and then you hit the wrist and then you hit the hand. Now, aside from this being a sculpted out wrist joint, which there are some, but I'm not sure if the pegs will actually fit into these, portholes of the hands. For me, this looks 100 times better, and it didn't take me but like 10 minutes to do all of this. It just makes for a cleaner, crisper figure on the shelf. So that's the Superman that you get in this 2-pack. Atomic Skull is awesome. He's actually my favorite part of this 2-pack. He's going to look awesome up there on the shelf. And he is a lot of fun. Now, he's definitely well worth picking up this 2-pack just for that Atomic Skull. But the Superman is a nice little addition. He kind of feels more like just an accessory to this Atomic Skull. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.